Well, welcome to my live stream today. Welcome to my live stream today. Today, I want to talk about marriage for males in our modern society. Is marriage beneficial for our men in our modern society? I am expecting a few guests to come on and I will be having that discussion. Just to be clear, all of the people that will be coming on are actually married men. Some have been married for years. So I thought it would be really good to get an insight from people who are actually married and are living an upstanding married life. All right. For all you single persons out there, your time will be further down in February when I will speak to people who choose not to get married. Why not get married? And is it a case that you do not see the benefits of marriage within our present social space? So that will be the gist of the discussion today. All right, for all the people that will be joining on YouTube via the link, this will not be a live stream. This is basically only for people who have been given the link. Only those persons will be able to view it, as this will not be going live until the month of February. Wonderful. So, this is empowerment. My name is Mr. Nemhard, and I speak on male issues ranging from financial management, financial security, to grooming, to confidence, to self esteem. These are some of the things I discuss on my platform, and the links to my Facebook and my Instagram page are in the description. If you want to go ahead and click that like, comment, and subscribe button, that would be really appreciated. We're trying to grow a community. We're trying to have influential males on our platform at least once per week, or let's say at least once per month, to have a discussion so they can impart valuable information to persons who may just need the assistance or just need someone to talk to. So that is the reason for my platform, and that is some of the things that we'll be talking about. All right, great. I see I have one of my guests has joined in, and I will be adding him just about now. Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing? Yeah. All right. So we seem to have been disconnected. So, with that being said, let us continue. I am expecting a couple of guests to join, as I mentioned just now, and we'll be having an engaging conversation. I can say that much. We'll be having an engaging conversations. All right. We'll be talking about marriage. Marriage, what does it mean? Has marriage lost its value in today's society? Has marriage lost its value in today's society? So let me get that down. Has marriage lost its value in today's society? And ever so often, you hear a lot of horror stories, a lot of times from males, a lot of horror stories about what marriage is and, their unhappiness in marriage. On the flip side, there are a lot of horror stories from ladies as well who got married and were divorced or are presently in a marriage that is oppressive or abusive. And you hear these horror stories over and over. So, is the institution of marriage, does it hold the same value as let's say 100 years ago or 200 years ago, when marriage was seen as something that, one, there were a couple of reasons why marriage was seen as such an important thing. One, it helped in generating generational wealth, for one, where there was a passage of possession of property, of finances, and of livestock from a man to his offspring. And also it was also used as a means of, in the countries that you had a hierarchy, where you had a kingdom, a king and queen system, it was a way of legitimizing the future of the household, the future of the monarchy. So these are some of the things that stand out in the ancient days of marriage. However, we're in an age where, and this is up to maybe 50 years ago, things began to change, maybe about 50 years ago, where women become more free, women become more liberated. There are very few things. There is no equality between the sexes. Even if it's not 100% equality, it is much better than it was before. So there's a more equality. Ladies are allowed to pursue their dreams. They don't have to be hitched, tied to a man to pursue their dreams. So what that led to is more options for just about everybody, and with women being coming into the workforce, it was a space has been created for them so they can be an active part of the society. All right. One of my guests has come up again. Let me see if I can add him to the stream, and let's hope it doesn't give me that error again. Um, Welcome, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Good
Was
evening, man. How you doing?
having some technical challenges, but it's rectified now. I'm doing great.
Definitely, man. Thank you so much for joining in. As I mentioned before, we're talking about marriage and the importance of marriage in today's society. You know, is marriage the same institution it was before, or, and specifically when we speak to males, what are the benefits of marriage in a man's life? As a married person, obviously, I would like to have your feedback. What do you think? What has marriage been for you?
Wow, that's a loaded question right there. But let me first say that the answer to the topic, your topic is marriage beneficial for the modern man. There's few questions that came up in my mind when I reviewed this topic. First question that came up in my mind: do we know what marriage really is? Because there is a lot of definition out there about marriage and what marriage is. So it's good to know the true definition of what marriage is. And the second question that came up in my mind is, what is the modern man? Is the modern man different from the man in the past, the men in the past? Those men who they call ancient men. Um, has there been a difference between the ancient man and the modern man? And what does the modern man look like? So those are some of the questions that came up from viewing this topic. But to answer your question, for me, marriage has been good. At times it has been like an adventure, or in other times it has been like going on a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. But nevertheless, it's an institution that I have been committed to for the past 11 years. And
And
it's an institution that, oh, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, man. You brought up two really, really, really good questions that I would really like to go into some more, because when you mentioned what is marriage, that is a really good question. And as you mentioned just now, many of us don't even know what marriage is, you know, and especially
Yes.
coming from a biblical perspective, because both of your questions that you brought just now, I had to highlight them. What is marriage and what is the modern man? Those are some really good questions. So I would really like to delve into what from your experience and from basically because as someone who know you personally, I know that you're a very Christian based person. So I understand that your reasoning will be coming from a Christianity based perspective. So for that reason, I am going to pose the question to you or have you clarify a bit more. What is marriage? Because I believe sometimes when you pose some questions, we need to dissect it first and then know handle the questions layer on top of layer. So that is a really good point from you right there. So I think a great start would be what is marriage and what is a modern man? I really appreciate those two questions. I would really like to delve into them a bit more even before we go any further.
Okay. All right. So very good. So from a biblical definition, marriage has to be first defined from a God point of view because he was the originator or the one who bring forth the institution of marriage. And we have to go on from the beginning, which is in the book of Genesis when God made the first man, which was Adam, the first human being. And in Genesis chapter 2, the Bible made the man and put him in the garden, but the man was alone. Even though the man had responsibility, he was responsible to keep the garden. That was his work, to keep the garden. He had fellowship because he had fellowship with God. God used to come down in the cool of the day and reason with man. So man had fellowship with God, but God saw that something else was needed. The Bible says the man was alone, and the Bible says it was not good for the man to be alone. But one would reason how comes the man is alone when the man have God, he has the animal, he has his responsibility, he has work and stuff like that. Um, but yet still, God saw that it was fitting for him to have what is called a helpmeet, somebody that would be suitable. It's not a helper now like a housekeeper, but somebody that would be suitable for the man. And so God made the woman, and this was a person who was now suitable for the man. And so marriage came about when God joined both the man and the woman together. That's what marriage is. Marriage is a union. Marriage is a binding of a man with a woman in the sight of God. That is sanctioned by God. And so this union created, that this union that is formed create now a oneness. The two becoming one, meaning that they now share things in common. And so
Wonderful.
that in essence, marriage is a union between a man and woman sharing things in common.
Good, 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 good. Thank you so much for bringing that to light, man. Because honestly, I would look well. Having it explained in that way is a really, really good starting point. It's a really good jump off point. So we can have an understanding of exactly what we are talking about. Because based on what you're saying right now, just based on what you just said, many things that we see now and we would consider as a marriage may not necessarily be a marriage because one, you said sanctioned by God, right? And you mentioned as a helpmeet, not as a maid or whatever, as a helpmeet, you know. So it's basically a case where these two people, and you mentioned them being one, and being one is not as simple as it sounds. So I mean, when you have these cases of marriage and divorces and people using it like a jump in and jump out situation, I think that goes to the the fact that many people do not understand the importance of the institution of marriage. So I am myself, I'm getting some even better insight just by speaking to you and hearing from your standpoint.
Yes.
So
And what we have to understand is that marriage is something that is universal, meaning that it applies to all race, all culture. It transcends race and culture because it's something that is first established by God. And this was established um by God to the first human beings on the planet. And so it goes to signify that every other human being that come after these two first human beings would have would have an example of what marriage is, because it doesn't matter whether you are Chinese or Jamaican or American. This institution transcends race because it was established before there were different races. So I would say marriage is of universal importance, whether you think so or not, because it transcends race, it transcends culture, because it is instituted by God, and therefore it is to be esteemed by all, whichever race that you find yourself, it is to be esteemed by all.
good man, wonderful, wonderful explanation. And all right, so fine. Since we have so far gotten an understanding of what is marriage, the second question that you posed as you came on, what is the modern man? Because there is a distinction, I believe, between the modern man and the men that, let's say, from biblical times are even coming up maybe 100, 200, 200 years ago, because societies change, traditions change, and cultures change. So what would you use as the definition of the modern man?
All right. So when I see modern men, are the definition of modern men, because when I look at what is classified to be modern in terms of men, I see men that are not sticking to certain traditions that was probably established by men of old, or certain traditions that was probably instituted by God or by the state, or wherever. And so in their pursuit of being relevant to this time, they forsake certain principles, and come up now with their own um definitions of what this thing should be like, or what, for example, back then a man a man would classify to have a certain kind of work, and if, for example, he was to farm, he was to be a farmer, and he was to be a provider for his family, right? And the woman would stay home and take care of the children, and everything, and the man would go out and stuff like that. But in the modern time that we're living now, we are seeing that some men are in the role of being at home. They are not necessarily being, um like, the woman is going out and they are at home. Does that make the man um less of a man, or does it make him um what you call it now, modern versus archaic or ancient? Because what is said to be ancient is the person who is what is said to be modern is a person who is basically embracing the change, that they are changing with the times. And if you are not changing with the times, then you are not classified to be modern, right? But how is that applicable to, like, does you changing with the times, does that change the
All right. So once again, we seem to have had some technical challenges. So I will get back to my guest as soon as he comes back online. However, that was a really interesting conversation because based and I must before even going further, I must call out the fact that he brought two very relevant questions that by right should be defined at the beginning of the conversation. What is marriage and what is a modern man? All right. Because as he was speaking about just now, the modern man is seen as one who, let's say, blends or blurs the gender roles. Because in marriages, what we have now is not, and it's not only marriages on a whole, in life, what we're having now is that the gender roles have become more blurred in the sense that there are men who are doing tasks that would, in a traditional sense, be reserved for women. And he mentioned just now, for example, the male staying at home, taking care of the household, taking care of the kids. In a traditional setting, what would usually happen is the man would go out, the man would go out and work, the man would go out and provide, whereas the woman, the wife, would stay at home, nurture the kids, raise the kids, and all of that. Basically, she would take care of the household while the man goes out and provides for the household. What that means is that what that means is that the gender roles were very, very defined. Gender roles were very defined. But what we have in the modern society, and this has come from maybe a lot of improvements in our lifestyle and as a species, there have been so many improvements with the advent of technology, knowledge, mathematics, STEM fields. You know, there have been so many more opportunities for people to go out because, for example, many of the jobs that were reserved for men can now actually be handled by women, and this is simply because of the advances in technology. There are some things that at one point needed the strength and the muscle of males, whereas the females would not be as whereas the females would not be as physically able to handle some tasks. Now, what we have is a case where, since we have an advance in technology, now we can have females handling certain tasks and males can be handling certain tasks as well. All right. So I thought that was a really, really interesting conversation. He brought a lot of things out that, he basically what he has done, he has laid the groundwork, the foundation for the as a space for a jump off point for the entire conversation. Because some other topics that we would be going into this conversation would speak mostly from a legal standpoint. Legally, what are the benefits for men as opposed to women? Because we're living in a society now where it would appear that men have been given a backseat, have been told to sit in the back of the bus, so to speak. And, you know, the playing field, we want the playing field to be even. We want males to stand up and take their positions. And I will always advocate for men as leaders of the household. Men should play your part. And with men in the lead, it will it will help to even make our society a better place. Because it is generally accepted that there are some things that males are naturally better at, and there are some things that females are naturally better at. If we can play the part that best suits us, then I believe we can have a more cohesive society and all of that. But great points. Really appreciate him coming and stopping by. And let's see if we will have any more guests coming in. We have gone 25 minutes into our chat, and I really do appreciate Mr. Mr. Bullock coming in. Really appreciate that. All right. So let me pose the other question here that I have. And the question is, should we stick to traditional gender roles for men and women? Should we stick to the traditional gender roles? Since we are in a society where it is fluid, things are changing, I believe that at the core aspect, we should stick to the traditional gender roles at the core of the discussion, meaning men should still be expected to be providers and protectors of their women and of his family. That does not change. Men, you should be providers and protectors of your family, whereas the women are expected to be the nurturers, right? Expected to be the nurturers of the family. So the divide in the family, the breakdown of the job functions in the family would be the men. You go out there and provide. You go out there and provide. And the women, you, for the most part, nurture because it has been scientifically proven that there are women are more loving. Women, the feminine attributes of a woman help to grow kids in a particular way, whereas the masculine attributes of a man help to balance out a child. So, therefore, a man and a woman inside a household within the confines of a marriage can dictate your child's probability for success in life or failure. A man's presence in the household is paramount. A woman's presence in the household is paramount. There are things that a child takes from a man. There are things there are attributes that a child takes from the male, and there are attributes that the child takes from the female. And this is whether the child is a boy child or a girl child. It is just the way it is. So I believe that at its foundation, the man and the woman should embrace their gender roles at its foundations. Alrighty, righty, righty. I have gone half an hour into my discussion. And since I am not getting any more guests coming in, I am really, really not good at monologuing. I'm really not good at monologuing. I am better at conversations with someone else. So it's kind of challenging for me to do a monologue. Um, I see where I have two viewers. If there's anybody watching on YouTube, could you put something in the comment section so I can see? Put your opinions, put your points in the discussions, anything you would like to have us discuss on, elaborate on. Share this live, share the link so other people can click on the link and watch it in the back end. And for people who want to be part of the panel, the link has been shared as well. You click on that link and you'll be able to come up on the panel. All right, all right. Let's go. The question remains. The question remains. What are the benefits of marriage for the modern man? And I will go back to the fact that there have been so many horror stories. There have been so many horror stories about marriage. I believe the last statistics I looked at from Statin would suggest that there are less people getting married. Why is that so? There are less people getting married, and it would appear that our divorce rate is rising. I think at present our divorce rate is like 20%, meaning 20% of the people who get married are divorced within the first 5 years. So that I believe is something we need to look into. Are people getting married for the wrong reasons? Is it a case that people are just not committed? Because I believe that people can get married for the wrong reasons. People can get married too quickly before actually getting a chance to know their partner. People get married from the dating phase, meaning when you should be dating, you are committing to something that should be a lifelong journey. Not everyone can commit to a lifelong journey for a lifetime. And when you, especially if you go in unprepared, if you're committing to a lifelong journey and you're unprepared, I believe you're setting yourself up for failure. The more you can relate with your partner, many people, especially ladies, like to say they want their husband to be their best friend, whereas that is and can be a really good attribute. A husband and a friend, in some cases, are different. Some things that you are expected to discuss with your husband, you will not be expecting to discuss it with your friend. So, for that reason, I believe there still should be a separation between your husband and your friend. Because I was speaking to a friend of mine, and he is one of the persons who I had invited to the panel. But apparently, today being Sunday, I think he might be still in church. However, the husband versus the friend, there is a difference between the husband and the friend. But I will not go too far off topic. Let me get back to what I'm discussing here in just a second. Just a minute. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Good, good, good. Thank you so much for that. I see my link is being shared around. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Now, for all married men out there, for all the married men out there, if you are if you are coming from a religious background, a Christian background, there's a text in the Bible that says you should love your wife as Jesus loves the church. Let me see. Love your wife. It is Ephesians 5:25. Love your wife as Jesus loved the church. No, no. Here's the thing. How much did Jesus love the church? How much did Jesus love the church? Jesus loved the church so much that he was willing to give his life. He was willing to sacrifice himself for, and this is not only the church, he was willing to sacrifice his life for all of us. And what that says, I don't know how many husbands would be willing to lay down their life for their wives. How many husbands would be willing to lay down their life for their wives. And this is some of the times this is what we get ourselves into. We do not understand the importance of what marriage is. Marriage marriage should be entered for the right reasons. Thank you so much for that one. Many people are getting into marriage for the wrong reasons. Many people are getting into marriage for financial reasons. Some people are getting into marriage at the infatuation stage of the relationship. So you just met the person a month ago and then you're planning a wedding. You still haven't gotten the time to gel, to mellow out, to understand the person inside and outside. Because remember, if you are going to have someone in your life that you are willing to give your life for, this is someone you have to know. And I'm going to draw the parallel between Jesus and the church and a husband and his wife. Jesus knew the church inside and outside, right? Jesus knew the church inside and outside. And as someone who is not a specifically a baptized Christian, if there is anyone in my contacts who is seeing the link and you would like to join, I would appreciate someone coming up. Let's have this conversation. A lot of people are getting married for the wrong reasons. We mentioned some of the reasons, financial reasons. There is this thing now they call clout. Many people are getting married for clout. Back in the day, and these are things that even happen, I believe, in Jamaica as well, where if you are in a relationship with a young lady and she gets pregnant, it is now basically your responsibility to honor that lady by marrying her. Right? Now, what we have is so many instances of not only sex before marriage, but kids being born outside of wedlock. And some of the things we may brush over and ignore is the fact that kids born outside of wedlock are it takes a toll on them. It takes a toll on them. Not seeing mommy and daddy every day. Not getting the opportunity to see how daddy interacts with mommy, because that teaches a child how to interact with their peers, and as they grow, how to interact with the opposite sex. Because there is a philosophy that says hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. This is simple because if a child is coming from an abusive home, if a child is coming from a home where there is no love, the child is not seeing love between mommy and daddy, or the child is not seeing love between daddy and the child, the chances of the chances of that child becoming an abuser when he grows up, or either becoming an abuser or abusing, let's say, substances, getting caught in substance abuse, gangs, and things of that nature. This is because kids need a balance in their life. We speak about love. Do we really know what love is? We mentioned just now that Jesus himself was willing to give up his life for the church, lay down his life as a sacrifice for the church, so we can all have an opportunity for salvation. Now, that is how you know you love somebody. If you know you are willing to put your interest, to put that person's interest above yours, that's how you know how much you love that person. If you know that if you have your last and that person is in need, and you would be willing to make the sacrifice to go without, especially in the case of men, because as men, we're tough. Men, tough. We're all right. We can buckle it out. We can fight it out. If it is to be hungry, we're good. We can hold on upon that. But at the end of the day, would you give your last to someone and suffer the consequences of your actions? You know that if you have your last $5,000, you will give it to her, for example, and you know that you will have to figure out how to get to work. You will have to figure out how to provide food for the rest of the week. That is left upon you as a man, as a provider. You figure it out. You know, the challenge is we're living in a fast-paced world. We're living in a really, really fast-paced world. I was on a panel last night on a YouTube channel that I normally moderate. It was not last night, sorry, it was early this morning, just after coming in from work. And the discussion was surrounding the discussion was surrounding how does the women see the male figure? What do women see when they see a man, an average man on the street? Do they see someone that they can look up to? Or do they see someone who is one of them boy there out the road? For example, pants down the so, spliff one side, um, weed digging out hand middle with the weed and all of that. So as men, how do you present yourself to the woman in the first place? Because this is where marriage begins. The potential of marriage begins from the initial approach that you make to the woman or the initial way that you carry yourself and she begins to show an interest in you. Now, not to go off tangent, however, it would appear that now, based on what we're seeing in social media, based on what we're seeing on the TV and all of that, what our kids are assimilating right now from social media, from the music, from the movies, is violence and presenting yourself in a violent way, meaning get that money quick, do what you need for, don't forget that money there, and all of these things. These things are what are crippling our society right now. And as far as women choosing men, it limits the choices of women. There are no husband material out there anymore. And on the flip side, it could be argued that there are no wife materials out there anymore because the young girls are taught to be twerking. No man wants to know that their wife is out there twerking, regardless of who he is, especially if he's from a religious background or he has certain standing or he has a certain amount of a person who has a certain level of well-being, a person who has stature. Don't want to see my wife out there twerking. That don't work. And on social media the other day, there was this well-known artist. I don't know, is a new trend or something. Basically, half naked twerking, right? There was a popular pastor the other day who he's getting a divorce from his wife. She was a popular social media person. She was what we would call for the streets. He got married to her, and after a couple of years, now the divorce is being finalized. What you see, there is a thing they say. What caught your eye in the first place is what you use to get her is what you're going to use to keep her. What you use to get her is what you're going to use to keep her. If you use money to get her, make sure you can continue to stay upon your money. Right? If you used your charm and your good looks and your physique to get her, make sure you stay in shape. Right? If you used your upstandingness, you're an upstanding person, and you present yourself in a particular way, and that is what she saw in you, make sure you can keep it up. Because once you have entered into a relationship, it's not you alone no more. It's not you alone. You're living for the other person. And as my guest had mentioned earlier, when marriage is involved, the two become one. The two become one, right? You can't just chop off your hand because it hurt you. That don't make no sense. If your hand hurt you, you try go to the doctor and get painkillers or whatever you need, right? You don't just cut off your hand because your hand hurt you. That don't make any sense because you're harming yourself. You're causing harm to yourself, which don't make any sense. I have been in a monologue for over half an hour. I guess I'm learning. I guess I'm learning this. I guess I'm learning. I'm getting there. I want to be comfortable in front of the camera before the end of the year. That is my goal, my YouTube goal, so I can make more engaging videos. It was a wonderful topic today. It was really nice talking on it. I really appreciate the persons who checked in. I really appreciate the persons who shared my link. I really appreciate the persons who are watching via YouTube. All right. So, with that being said, I am going to sign off now. It was a really, really interesting topic. All right. So, thank you so much for joining. If you have found value in my content, please consider subscribing. Please consider also checking out my Instagram and my Facebook page. That would be really appreciated. Thank you so much. One more thing before you go. Next week at this time, I will be having two two panelists, and we're going to be speaking about investments. So on my Instagram page and on my Facebook page so far this month, I was speaking about finances as men, how to handle your finances and how to be a better put together person financially. So I will be having two panelists next week at this time. Both of them are my coworkers who are known to be really good at understanding stocks and the stock market. And for that reason, I will be having them on my panel and we will have a discussion. We will delve into what is investment, stock market, and all of that. So that is what it is for next week to end the month of January. For the month of February, I will be speaking up mostly about marriage and relationships. So this video will actually go live on YouTube over in February. All right. Thank you so much for your support. I realize I have some people watching. Feel good. You see, things are going on. All right. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for the comments that I am seeing in the chat. Really, really appreciate it, guys. Really appreciate it. All right. So that will be it for the evening. Mr. Francis, I see you. Sir, have a great evening, everyone. This has been Mr. Nemard, and my YouTube channel is called Empowerment. That is the aim. That is my aim for the month, the year, and as long as I am able to post videos to empower men. Sometimes the smallest things can make a difference for somebody. Sometimes the smallest things, sometimes the smallest discussions can be of great assistance to somebody. If you know of someone who needs someone to talk to, make yourself available. You don't know the change that you don't know the impact you can have on someone's life. I am a product of having a discussion when I was much younger with somebody who had an impact on my life and changed my trajectory, or else I would not be here. So this is just basically me trying to pay it forward. So I'm encouraging you as well. If you're watching and you know someone who needs someone to talk to, make yourself available. That's all I ask. Thank you so much for joining. It's Mr. Nemad here. Have yourself a wonderful evening. Ta ta.